What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the video. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today I'm here with the refreshed 2025 Kia Carnival, and this one is the fully loaded SX Prestige with the V6 engine. Kia has sent me this Carnival to keep for an entire week to be able to give you guys the most thorough review possible, so I've been driving it a lot over the last few days, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. So let's waste no time, let's get right into it. Starting off with the ride quality. The suspension is pretty forgiving. Bumps and potholes aren't really an issue, and we have a lot of them up here in New Jersey, that's for sure. It's a smooth ride, and it doesn't really leave much to be desired. Now, obviously, this is a minivan, and it sits pretty high up, and visibility is actually great. The dashboard sits very low in here, and I'm 6 feet tall. I have the seat down on like the lowest height that it can be at, and I still feel like pretty high up. I've been trying to instinctively try to lower it, but this is actually as low as the seat goes. And also the windows just feel very tall, the windshield, and just all around. On these quieter side streets, the road noise is left to a minimum. Now later in the video, we'll take it out on the highway. It's kind of a different story out on the highway. Now this SX Prestige model has the 19-inch wheels. That's fairly big by today's standards. And if you're unfamiliar, bigger wheel sizes typically correlate with a louder, more harsh ride, but that just isn't really the case in here. There's still enough sidewall on the tire to absorb the shock of some of these bigger bumps on the road. So I'd say overall the suspension, pretty solid. Now, while the suspension does do a good job at eating up the bumps, when you do hit some of these bumps, on the interior, inside the cabin, you will hear a bit of rattling. There's some rattling coming from the seats in the back as well as the rear tailgate, so that is something to keep in mind. Now, you really only notice it if you're driving in complete silence like how I am right now, but if you have music playing, it gets drowned out and you don't really hear it. So now we're going to do an acceleration test on this 3.5 liter V6, putting out 287 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. All right, so up here we're going to come to a complete stop. I have traction control off and we're in sport mode. Complete stop. Now, I know you heard that. So what you just saw and heard was a demonstration of what I think is this car's biggest issue, and that would be the lack of all-wheel drive. Unfortunately, the Kia Carnival does not have all-wheel drive as an option. It is only front-wheel drive. So that, paired with a 3.5 liter V6 in a car that's as big as this and as heavy as this, understandably, there's going to be some issues with traction. And as you can see around me, it's the middle of winter, just snowed here in New Jersey. They dropped off this car to me literally the morning after we just had a snowstorm. And if you live in a climate like this, I think traction is one of the most important factors in buying a vehicle. And the first day I had this, even just on normal city driving like this, I was kind of slipping and sliding a lot, especially when they first plow the streets and kind of in the middle of the intersections, you just get a lot of wet slop and ice. Anytime I came to a stop at an intersection and then the light turned green and went to go, it was just like that, even at lower speeds. I mean, what you just saw was pedal to the floor, full acceleration from zero, but even in normal drive mode and only going up to 25 miles an hour, there's still some pretty significant traction issues in the snow, and also just on, a wet surface, because we have snow melting. It's not icy in all spots, but you do have a lot of wet spots just from snow melting, and there's a lot of wheel slippage on the icy spots and the wet spots as well. I mean, hopefully they'll listen to some of these concerns and, you know, make the change for the next generation. All right, we're gonna try out the acceleration one more time. This time I have traction control turned back on just to see if it does make an improvement. All right, traction control back on, and all right, so as you can see, the wheel slip, it's certainly better, but you do get more of a delay in delivery of power. So I think it's kind of a wash either way. It's just not great. And the thing that really is a shame about that is that the engine and transmission combo is actually pretty good, but this car just doesn't have the traction to back that kind of power. And as far as the transmission goes, I think it shifts very smoothly, and it doesn't shift too quickly. It doesn't quite go to redline, but it usually shifts somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 RPM when you are gunning it like that. So now out here on the highway, you can hear all the cars passing me. The road noise is a lot louder on the highway than it is on the back roads. So if you do a lot of highway driving, it's gonna get pretty loud here on the highway. And one of my favorite features of this Kia Carnival's got to be this turn signal camera, and I love that it's on both sides. See, I drive a 2016 Honda Civic, and it has one on the right side, but not for the left. Honestly, this is one of those things I wish every car had. So the Carnival also has highway driving assist, which is basically the adaptive cruise control. So here we are out on the highway. Now, in order for that to work, you do have to make sure that your lane keep assist is turned on. That's this button down here on the right side. And then to set your distance, it's this button right here up on the top. So I have the distance set now. Okay, Lookma, no hands. Does a pretty good job with the braking of keeping the distance nice and consistent. Now after a time, it will give you an alert telling you to keep your hands on the wheel. So right now we're going about 40 and it's working just fine. And now it's telling me to keep my hands on the wheel. Okay, my hands are touching the wheel, but I am not steering. The car is doing it all on its own. This 2025 Carnival SX-Prestige has a 12-speaker Bose audio system, so let's take a listen. All right, let's talk about it. I'd say this system is almost perfect. Okay, the actual sound quality itself is quite good. Great balance between treble, mid, and bass. And also it handles the harder hitting low end frequencies very well, especially at high volumes. The bass doesn't become overly distorted once you crank it up really high. But my only issue with the system is the fact that it's only 12 speakers. Okay, the interior, as you can see, I mean, it's a really large interior. And I think 12 speakers doesn't necessarily cut it. And I think for the size of the space, 12 speakers is not enough, because what most car audio systems do is when you sit in it and you listen to it, you're usually fully immersed into it, and it almost sounds like you're in like a recording studio type setting. In here, especially like towards the center of the interior, there's a hollowness to the sound. It's almost like you can hear the reverb of the space. It's like you can almost hear the speakers from the rear, like the echo as the sound is traveling forward. It's like there's just something missing that I think could be fixed if there were more speakers in here. But aside from it needing more speakers, I think the system itself sounds good. All right, so now we're here out at the back roads at Eagle Rock Reservation, and we're gonna be testing out the steering and the handling of the Carnival. The steering, for the most part, is very precise, very direct. In terms of weight, I'd say it leans more on the lighter side than on the heavier side, but I think the weight is appropriate for what this car is. And of course, in terms of handling, well, it's a 3-row minivan, so there's only so much you can do with that. Of course, on some of these sharper turns, you do feel a bit of body roll because this is a tall van, so this has a higher center of gravity, so cars like this are more susceptible to rollovers, so that is something you have to keep in mind. I don't think anyone's throwing a minivan into any corners, but in case you are, I wouldn't do that with this, especially with the lack of all-wheel drive. And the steering doesn't provide a whole lot of feedback, but this isn't that kind of car, you know? And something I tend to forget to talk about in my videos is braking. I think the brakes in here, they work quite well. They have more than enough stopping power in proportion to engine output, weight, and all the other factors. I've definitely driven some other vehicles in the past where the braking didn't give me much confidence, but in this one, I have no worries about rear-ending anybody or having to stop short. Brakes, they work well. MSRP of this 2025 Kia Carnival SX Prestige is $52,755. So that is going to wrap up this test drive of the 2025 Kia Carnival SX Prestige. Big thank you to Kia for sending me this Carnival to keep for an entire week. Let me know your thoughts on the refreshed Kia Carnival down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please share with a friend and subscribe. It'll really help the channel grow. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. Let me know down in the comments what other vehicles you want to see on the channel next, and be sure to follow @OpticalAutomotive on TikTok and Instagram, and check out the page on Facebook. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.